Hi everyone. Today we did get a resumption of this rally after just a little bit of falling price action mid-session yesterday, but look at this here today. Straight up all session right to this trend resistance here. You can see created this trend line kind of marking this bottom here, marked a top, and now we are right back to that level. 550.12 is the level as well. Is this going to be a major rejection from here? Let's take a look at the charts. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So in news today, we got China coming out and saying there are no ongoing trade talks with the US for canceling any unilateral tariffs. We got a little bit of news yesterday and Secretary Bessent saying there is a potential for a deal and maybe easing tensions, but China came out and said that is absolutely not happening. We're not even talking. There's no chance of that in the short term. And markets did not seem to care about this at all. They said no discussions happening on US tariffs, despite indications from the White House. So interesting that markets rallied on this news potentially. And then today markets did not care at all. Moving over to Alphabet. Alphabet rose on stronger than expected revenue growth. So nice beat for them. You can see revenue of $90 billion. Or $2.81 per share, rose 4% stronger than expected. You can see the growth here after hours, about 5%, so pretty good numbers here from Alphabet. I think it remains to be seen what their CapEx is going to be like, what is their forward guide going to be like, but it's a nice beat, and so far so good. Nice revenue, like I said, earnings per share, really solid beat. 80 cents per share is a really solid beat. YouTube revenues missed just a little bit. Cloud revenues pretty much in line there. And then traffic acquisition costs a little bit worse versus what the street was expecting. So overall, not bad. Revenue growth 12% year over year, higher than the 10% expected. And as a YouTuber, you like to see it, want to see good ad spend. Although I will say, I think there's some things they could do better with YouTube, which is potentially driving some of that weakness. But overall, pretty good result, and the company is doing well, especially with respect to the stock market. Moving over to fear and greed, 31 from a 27. Markets continue to improve off of that higher low setup. Structurally still looks good. Interesting to see strength just not moving at all. Continues to flatline at these very negative numbers. Not good at all. Breadth improving here a little bit. Put call ratio, still extreme fear, but continues to improve close to that 0.8 area. Just shows you how high we were. And you can see this was trending higher as well. So we'll see if that continues. Volatility getting very close to that 50-day moving average. Came down to a 26.5 area. 24.79 is that zone. We'll see if that matters. Safe haven demand, still extreme fear, but junk bonds cooling quite a bit. Still extreme greed there. So a little bit more mixed on the indicators, but hitting some key levels. Moving over to the economic calendar, core durables came in flat, worse than expectations, not good at all. But what you do see here is durable goods orders way higher than expectations. Really interesting to see that. So that is the more important number. I like to see it. My question is this being pulled forward because the expectation is that tariffs will be implemented in the next 90 days or so, and durable goods orders are being shoved through at current prices ahead of those tariffs? That could be interesting. Existing home sales, terrible, almost 6% down, way worse than expectation. Previous number was revised up just slightly, but not much. Existing home sales numbers for March, a little bit worse than expectations, not terrible though. Atlanta Fed GDP continues to get worse, and then 7-year note auction just a little bit below, not enough really to move anything. And look at Fed balance sheet. Did not move at all here for the week. That's unusual. They said they were going to slow down. I didn't think they'd slow down to zero, but I wonder if this is having some effect on market stabilization. If the Fed is not going to continue to sell into the market, maybe that's why we're seeing a little bit of economic stock market growth there. And then for tomorrow, just Michigan data, all soft data tomorrow. Moving over to earnings, Alphabet beating, like we said, PepsiCo missing on earnings. They also put out a pretty weak guide. Makes sense with all the tariff risk, but not super great to see a staples company struggling. Bristol Myers beating on both. Nice to see that. Intel doing really well. Expectation was less than a penny. They came out to 13 cents of earnings, so they like to see that. Not everything was good. A little bit more red on the board than what we were seeing previously. American Airlines, a little bit less of a loss than expectation, so that's interesting. And then for tomorrow, really not much here. AbbVie, Colgate-Palmolive. And then once we roll into the Monday, lots and lots of big companies next week. Moving over to the charts, starting off with the S&Ps here, you can see on the daily chart, we did get a nice push, about 2%. We're coming up to that trend line in the after hours. We already touched it, momentum bullish, RSI right at the 50 line. If this is going to downtrend, RSI 50 is one of those indicators that you really want to watch for. You can see it back here mid-March. We hit RSI of 49.2, RSI 50.15, and then the next day, big sell, big sell, big sell, continuation lower, and we had not touched 50 again. We got close on April 9th to a 47.9. We're close again here at a 51, and we are at it again at a 51.58. Is this going to be the zone of rejection? Remains to be seen. This is pretty much where we rejected last time too. You can see we got above the 21, just above the 200 there when we were there, and then we did reject down. So that's kind of where we're at here again. Structurally very similar with the low, higher, low setup. Nice little push there, and then we'll see if we get that follow through to the downside or not. And then throwing on those short-term levels here, you can see we did go right to the trend line, added that trend line here today, which is really just marking these perfect tops here, very, very close to that zone. Right at the 550.12 level, we said that was the next level if we got above 540.90. Those levels were on there yesterday. We were watching this one here, nice little breakout, went almost to the next one, got back above this level early in the session. Pretty decent dip in the pre-market down to that 531 area. Nice little opportunity there. And now you can see overbought conditions on the daily chart, critical zone here, watching this zone closely. It's already pretty extended for sure. In the short term, definitely extended. And we're in a critical zone. So if we get through here, I would expect some kind of pullback. How much of a pullback? Something like this would be fine. Maybe even back to the 540 area, hold this level, and then continue higher if it's going to do it. Otherwise, if this is truly a zone of resistance the way that it was here, and we do pull back to that lower trend, you can see this move here. That was about 6%. If we do get a pullback from current price back to that trend, that's about another 5.5% from current. So we'll see. Something to watch for. Critical zone tomorrow. Moving over to my 4-hour chart here on the Tasty charts, you can see we are right at that upper ATR band. That upper band is at 549.26, and in the after hours we did touch it. You can see the high for that candle, 549.29, so just a couple of pennies above that level. We have pulled back from it slightly. We're right at that 144 EMA as well, 547.81. Is this the zone where we start to pull back? Potentially. This is a nice bullish push, though. We have not been to the upper area of this band in a while. You can see even here we missed it. So I do like that kind of a push, but in the short term, definitely extended. Might see a little bit of a pullback maybe to the mid-range here, 530 to this kind of 538 area, pull back into this area, and then get that resumption back to the upper band. That would be interesting. But either way, short term, definitely extended. Moving over to the NASDAQ here, you can see again, right at the trend line. After hours, we're up above it. Can Google give us the strength to get above it? On the hourly chart, we're not. You can see right in here, I am working off of this high here and here and pairing that with this kind of break point before we saw this acceleration down. So we'll see. We'll see if this is the zone. Are we going to get a touch of there tomorrow? I suspect we will. You can see even on the hourly chart here, momentum starting to fade, RSI already overbought. And just like we've talked about on the SPY charts here, you can see once we get above those 50 lines on a downtrend right here, we saw it touch that 50 and sold off. Got close to it here, sold off. So far, we've not been able to hold above that 50 line on the RSI on the daily chart. And then throwing those levels on there. 471.06, we'll get a touch of that tomorrow, I suspect. We'll see if we can get into this zone here, and then if we're going to pull back, touch some of these levels in here potentially. If we can get above it, 477.84 is the next level. Moving over to those Tasty charts here. For the Qs, you can see that upper ATR band at 468.36. Right now, 469.41, so we're above it. Are we going to be able to hold above that upper ATR band? I suspect that we won't. I suspect we'll get some kind of pullback from this zone. Saw a really strong push to the mid-range, saw a really strong push to that upper range. Can we grind higher? Sure. Will we continue to accelerate through here? I just don't see that being super likely. You can see here, we've done that before where you did accelerate through it just briefly, and then in not too long, we did end up back above those levels in just a couple of days, and then we were back in that kind of normalized price action within the ATR band. So we'll see. Can we go higher? Sure. Will it last? Probably not. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, moving a little quicker here, you can see 2% on the Russell, 1.28% on the Dow. The Russell looks nice. We're getting close to that 195 level, getting close to some of these gap fills. Momentum still bullish, RSI right at that 50 line. Is it going to hold above the 50? Are we going to pull back to the SMA? Still remains to be seen. Will we get the gap fill first? Maybe. That's around 196.90 or so. Right now, though, everything continues to look bullish. Need to get above the high from yesterday, which we did not do today. That's a little bit concerning, but not too bad. Overall, still looks like a pretty bullish structure here. And then similarly here on the Dow, not above yesterday's high, right there at the 21 EMA as your resistance at 401.76. Your next level would be 404.47. Moving over to the Mag 7. Mag 7 also hitting that 50 line, also well above the level now in the after hours, 265.08. We're at 268.33 with that Google earnings. Can we make it back to the high from 9 April? That would take us to 273.41, critical level there. That would also take us right above this trend line. Right now we are at it in the after hours. This is more of just kind of a center line here that I was watching. Mark these tops here, mark some grinding price action. Once we got above it, that was your sell. Got to it a couple times. We are now at it. Once again, is this downtrend line going to hold as resistance? Tomorrow, I think, will give us some better indicators. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft. These have been playing leapfrog here. Pretty interesting moves. You can see Apple up 1.48%, had a huge outperformance yesterday. And then look at Microsoft here today, up 3.45%, right to that 388 level, right to that 144 EMA, right to that 55 EMA, 389.70. And then that critical zone above here is going to be the 394.22 level. That's the high back here from that 9 April / 14 April timeframe. So we'll see. Is this the area where we are going to reject? Are we going to kind of consolidate in here for a little bit? That's a possibility. Either way, though, Apple structurally still looks a little bit better, but in the short term, we did see a little bit of Microsoft outperformance today. Moving over to Tesla and NVIDIA. Tesla had another really nice day, 3.5% after hours, up another couple of dollars, 264.68 is still the price target to the upside in the short term. I suspect that we'll get there tomorrow. Can we get above it? That remains to be seen. If you can, 280.06 is the next level, 55 EMA right there as well, 279.54. Momentum bullish, RSI just above the SMA there, momentum bullish here for NVIDIA as well. Right at the level 106.64. We did touch that here today. 106.54 was the high of day. So we're just above it. So we're right at it. And you can see 106.98 in the after hours. Can we drive to this kind of lower high price action in here? That would be about 7.5% higher, about $8. That would take you right to this kind of consolidation high as well. Last time we had a move like this where you had a nice big dip, rally up, pulled back, rallied up. That was the trigger for a bigger move down. So are we going to have the dip, rally to the level, breakdown? Still remains to be seen. Structurally, still very much a bear trend, but short term, it seems like there's a little bit of bullishness in the market. Moving over to Amazon and Alphabet. Amazon had a good day, 3.29%, right to the level 188.64 in the after hours. We are at 189.80, so we hit that level after hours, 191.64. This kind of consolidation zone is interesting. Structurally, still looks good. We're right above this high here in the after hours. Amazon benefiting from that move in Alphabet. Look at it here on Alphabet. 168.87, right at that 55 EMA on the daily chart. Is that going to be a major resistance? I still believe that it will. This is still very much a downtrend. What I would suspect here is as we continue to break through, test, we'll see a pullback here, get a higher low setup, maybe retest the 21. That would be interesting around 156. If you hold the 21 EMA as support, that would be a really strong setup for a potential move higher. But for now, this is still a downtrend. You still have those overhead resistances, and I would expect some sellers to be hanging out in this 170.95 area. Moving over to staples versus discretionary. Staples finding a little bit of weakness here today, down about 1%, falling in the after hours. Discretionaries popping, so you can see a little bit of risk on markets coming through here over the last 2 days. Can we get continuation on that? I don't think it's really sustainable, but in the short term, there is definitely some room. I do think you could see as high as maybe 4.5% here. That would be interesting into this zone here. Reject one more time, get a higher low setup, and then a continuation if it's going to do it. Otherwise, if we just fall through here, obviously that's going to be a bearish continuation, which this is still a downtrend. You still suspect that that is what we're going to get ultimately, but in the short term, like I said, a little bit of risk on markets. Moving over to 20 and 50-day breadth. 20-day got all the way up to the 70 area. That's about as high as it goes. We're already there. Really, really fast move. Just a couple of days, we went from 14 to 70% above that 20-day moving average. This could go a little bit higher into the 80s. We could hold there for a little bit. You can see a week or two is possible, but I just don't see it holding in there very long, especially with the downtrend structure that we have. So just keep an eye on it. We're already at overbought conditions, what I would call overbought conditions short term on 20-day breadth. 50-day, on the other hand, did not move a whole lot. We're still at the 32 level, so way, way below it. Are we going to see 20-day start to break down? 50-day will follow. Get a higher low setup continuation. Certainly a possibility. Right now, momentum on both of these still bullish. RSI still bullish, so we'll see. Can we go a little bit higher? Yes. Can it go that much higher? Not really. Moving over to the dollar did fall here. You can see falling pretty much throughout the session. Tried to hold the 200, closed below it. Not super great. Momentum still bearish there. Daily price action, you can see, was right at the level 99.83. Touched that zone, immediately broke down from there. And so far, this looks pretty bearish. Breakdown, retest, breakdown. Momentum hasn't gone with it yet. RSI still holding above the SMA. If it can hold here, maybe you have a little bit more bullishness in it, but structurally, this looks awful. So the dollar did care about the China news. Equities have not priced that in quite yet, in my opinion. Moving over to JNK and TLT, these continue to be really, really good opportunities, in my opinion. You can see JNK, nice little move, right back to the level 94.82. We said this was a buying opportunity. So far, continues to be a good one. I was buying some longer hold stuff in here. So far, so good on that. Same really here for TLT. I do hold some govies. No TLT, but some shorter term stuff. Ended up being a nice little opportunity in there. Momentum, bullish, RSI, we're back above the SMA, headed towards that 98 area. Nice little 1% move on TLT. Moving over to the VIX. The VIX went right to that first level. Is it going to go to the second one? I suspect that it will. 24.42 is the next level. Once we touch this zone, I would suspect we're going to find a little bit of support in there. So short term, bearish, medium term, at least to this level. Then I would look for a little bit of a bounce from there. Maybe a lower high setup, continuation lower potentially. Momentum bearish, RSI still bearish on the VIX. Moving over to my accounts, I did actually take a trade today. I did not trade too much, literally one trade in and out. I sold some puts early in the session, held those through most of the session. They expired almost completely worthless. Technically, they didn't expire. I did sell them, but they would have expired worthless. And you can see here a nice little profit now on the year. Almost positive in my main account, fighting back slowly. I was up a lot early, down a little bit mid so far, so that was about a month ago, and so far we've fought back from that to almost positive in both accounts. You like to see it. It's been a little bit of a tough trading year, but slowly making money back consistently. No problems underperforming the market. I still think this is a downtrend. Took a bullish trade. So far, so good. For tomorrow, though, watching that key area, if we start to see breakdowns from that zone, I will look to get short from there. I do think that that is the better probability trade, not that we just continue to rocket up from here and that the bull market is back on. I don't think that that is likely, at least for now, but you never know. If we do see breakouts, I will take those trades also. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the China deal or the lack of a China deal. What do you think about Google earnings? Is the rest of big tech going to do as well as Google? Can we find some legs to the upside off of earnings? Let me know. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.